Welcome back, YouTube. So today, going to be trying out Darkseekers Retreat. So it should be a treat because I'm not sure what to expect. Yeah, I think I meet the AP requirements, but the DP, I don't know. We'll give it a shot though. We'll see. I really need to get my flame. And so far, I have ordered the flame off the marketplace. Well, not the flame, but the, what is it? The ember. I think it's the ember. 43. So I have pre-ordered 43 of these so far off the marketplace. So yeah, we're gonna try to give an hour here and see if it's even somewhat viable. 131. I had these J scrolls that I need to burn through as well, but I don't know if I want to pop these because I think my next video is going to be on the spot anyway. Need to do my farm, but I really don't want to do that right now. Let's see if I can try to put my tent up here, maybe. Probably not gonna let me put my tent up there, huh? Yep. It's alright, we'll put it right here. Repair real quick. Villa scroll, we'll do this. Probably gonna also do the tent buff as well, because I feel like I probably should use this for that extra chance. So let me move some money over. Let's see here, Villa scroll. Or no, I need to buy shop. All right, I'm gonna buy this. Let me make sure I have all my buffs though first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me go ahead and run this here. And then I'll go ahead and see, buy this 50 million. Okay. All right. We go ahead and pop this here. 2. Okay. Put my drought on here real quick. My pets. All right. I think we are ready to go. These some tanky boys, huh? I don't even know if there's any specific mechanics that I need to be paying attention to. I guess I go to the next one. Is that how it works? I don't know. Well, so far, I'm not dying. I think they recently changed the spot too, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, nice. So I need to put this up there too. Well, looks like I only need to do two, because yeah, I'm just slow at grinding, I guess, but that's okay. Oh, okay. That took half my health down. All right, what's going on here now? Now they're hitting me like a tank. Come on now. Okay, I got some type of fragment. I don't know if that's important or not. Kind of in the groove, so I really don't want to look at it just yet. Hopefully I'll get some knowledge on these guys right here. Okay, killed him two again. Yeah, so it looks like at least as of right now, I'm only able to do two at a time. Well, I felt like at least I'm not like dying. I mean, I've had like a few close calls, kind of. Not really though. Huh. All right, I mean, this ain't too bad. I feel like I'm doing no damage to them, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it's kind of weird. That is so weird. You would think, like, I meet the AP requirement. At least that's what it says on the monster zone. But I don't know. I feel like I'm not hitting them very hard. But I definitely don't meet the DP requirement, and I feel like I'm definitely holding my own on that. But I think Striker sustain's pretty good though too. So it could also be like I don't have knowledge on them yet. So I think maybe once I get knowledge, it'll be easier to kill. I wonder if accuracy might have an issue too. I didn't even think about accuracy. Yeah, I'm hoping that once I get knowledge on those mobs right there, it'll be easy to kill. Oh gosh, hello. What's going on here? Where's all this damage coming from? Jeez. Hey, I finally got knowledge. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to kill. I'm gonna put on this podcast and see how it is.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Massively OP podcast. Now, you might normally be ready to hear our adventures in MMOs and news and mailbag, but we're going to do something a little bit different this week. That's something we actually wanted to start doing here at the Massively OP podcast because last year I think we had one or two episodes where we just did something different. We did like a theme show and we genuinely enjoyed it so much. We said, why aren't we doing this a little bit more
Yes.
often? Because we, after 456 episodes, which is this one right here, maybe we get into a bit of a routine, a little bit of a rut, and it's nice to just shake ourselves out of it and have a topic show, just something where we push news to the side for one day and we give Bree the longest length of mic possible and say, "Run with it, baby," and we do.
Yep.
So
You know what? Actually, there was even a commenter who sent us in a list of topics. Like, this is like
yeah,
hardcore right here. I wrote them all down because they're good. And housing, well, I just gave it away. Crap.
we're doing a housing show, people.
It's a housing show, and this was like the first one. It was Java Jawa who asked, and the very first one was housing. And I don't think that's why you picked it. I think you picked it because we both really like housing. But
Yeah, I say it's an easy topic to talk about. We
yeah,
certainly it's bubbled
Housing,
up in little
player
bits of
housing.
news or our own experiences in game, and I thought it'd be kind of interesting just to devote a whole episode to talking about MMO housing. So I know there's also a little anxiety whenever your regularly scheduled show goes a little off the rails and does a very special episode. I promise you, nobody will be learning lessons in
no
this one.
lessons at all. Yeah.
Yeah, there will. It's like when a sitcom did that, and for the next half an hour nobody was going to be laughing.
Yeah, no one was
But
gonna have a good time at all.
yeah, somebody was going to have some tragic thing, and they were going to end the episode on a phone number you could call if you knew somebody that was in that situation. They were like, "Dude, I'm 8 years old. I don't need this. I just want to laugh, man. Webster, why don't you just laugh?" Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We'll still be silly. We'll still be irreverent. But we are going to talk about all things MMORPG housing, player housing. So if it's not your jam, go
Player
forward in
housing.
time
Come
a
on, let's
week
jump into it.
and we'll be back to our
If it's
normal
not your
format.
jam, you're not listening.
Yeah,
Because like
that's true.
honestly, if you didn't like housing, you probably aren't listening to us. I really just don't think
No,
that
not
maybe
necessarily.
I'm wrong. You
I
tell
like
me if I'm
housing.
wrong. But I bet not.
I think we have a lot of fans. I don't always assume generally everybody's into all the
Yeah.
same things we are, but we have a lot of housing fans here on the staff. So anytime we talk about it, definitely we have opinions. Different ones of us have different games we like, and we
Hey,
even
look, I
have
got
an
my
award
first
we hand
ember.
out every year for best MMO
Nice. I
It's
housing.
don't
like
know
So
what
pulling
is
teeth to
that.
get people to vote on that damn award.
Some
But you're right.
artifact
Like
thing.
almost
Hey, I
everybody
got my
plays
first
housing,
ember. Let's go,
including
boys.
people you would not think would even like housing. But it all depends on which game and like what the offerings
Let me
are and
rephrase
like
that. I got my
how
first
excessive
ember
like for
actually
your brain that
grinding.
tickles it and makes you want to actually play.
yeah. So let's start with our first kind of topic here. We each kind of picked three topics. A little asterisk there. I picked three topics. Bree picked like 20, but then she consolidated into three. So we'll see how that works.
Justin asked me to brain dump, and I brain dumped. What do you want from me?
I have other people in my life like that. I asked specifically, "Can I get like two ideas from you?" And then here's a list. I'm
And
like,
then
I
you
don't know
pick the
what to do
best
with
ones.
this.
It's
Yes,
fine. I'm okay
yeah.
with that. Edit me down.
All right. So, well, the first thing I wanted to ask and for us to talk about is what advantages do housings bring to an MMO? Like, why should an MMO include housing? How does it
To
give
be
the
more
studio an
immersed,
advantage, or what does it benefit the
for the
studio?
player to be
How does
fully
it benefit
immersed.
players? Like why?
Hmm.
Because I'm doing this a bit from a devil's
Community
advocate
aspect.
position because I hear people who don't like housing going, "Why is that studio spending time on housing?
Mm-hmm.
It's there's no combat progression. It's not really benefiting your characters, ongoing story. So why have it? So it's
It's
maybe
a fair question,
yeah,
right? I mean, like the way I see it is that there's going to be there. It's the old classic Bartle thing, right? People's brains work different ways. They're attached to different kinds of content, and different kinds of content make the game sticky. And housing makes the
Yeah,
game sticky for a lot of people, again, including people you wouldn't necessarily think would care about playing, you know, family Barbie dress up in a
yeah. It's like
building,
your
right? You wouldn't
traditional
think they'd
Sims.
care. But if it's got a good architectural system, now you've got people who like to build. If it's got a good like achievement and like artifact system, now you've got people who like to go out and get the coolest stuff that they can have in their house and show off their chivos. If it's got some sort of vendor system, now people who are involved in the economy really want to play or crafting or whatever. If it's got a really cool stage or a tavern or any kind of guild functionality. Now you've got the socializers who want it. Like it can work for all of those things except for combat itself, and can appeal to a whole bunch of different. To me, like just the stickiness factor for one of those groups is good enough. But I think that housing is one of those things that transcends, so
I
that
don't
it's
know
sticky
which
for a
game
whole
does
bunch of
housing
different
better
groups,
though.
and that means you get people playing and staying. And that's always the problem with MMOs, is that people come in and then they
I think
leave and they
the
wander off. They don't feel like they've got a sense of
Final
ownership
Fantasy
or any
housing's
roots in
kind
the
of
game
cool,
beyond
where you can
their
like
guild
own
or
a piece of
whatever
plot in
their
an
one character.
instanced
If they
area
have a home, that's just,
and to pay
mentally
taxes
harder
on
to
it.
abandon.
Yeah. Yeah, and to build off of that, because I completely agree with all of that. It can touch almost every. I would even argue it could touch combat,
You think
because
so?
the loot tables, yes, and also you could work in systems where, like, hang out in your house, you get certain
Oh,
buffs.
true. There you go.
So you do kind of like it's a staging ground for your future
Do some
adventures,
life
and
skilling
the place you go back to at the end of
type of
the
thing.
day. So it kind of feels a little bit more natural, instead of always being an
Mm-hmm.
itinerant nomad, who doesn't really have roots.
Murder hobos.
Yeah, as we all tend to be. Yeah, I think it almost seems like there's so many benefits. Somebody asked me this question, I would just like stall out in my mind, not knowing where to start,
Yeah.
because it's not
Yes.
just one answer. I think it is. Yeah, it's such a broad thing, and I think a great example to look back on this, if you're questioning like the validity and the purpose of housing, is to go, okay, look back to the year 2000 when The Sims came out. Now, I know it seems weird in retrospect, but when that game came out, there were a lot of people who went like, "This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard of." Like, who wants to play Barbie Doll House? Like, all the games back then were shooters or
Diablo 1.
real-time strategy games, adventure games like that.
Daggerfall.
Yeah, that was the trend of the time. And if you were a creative person who wanted to design something, who didn't want to kill something, there weren't a lot of spaces for you to do that. Now there were proto Sims kind of style games. Even Sim City would be a game that you can nurture and design. But something happened, like it really clicked hard with gamers when Sims came out, and suddenly you had this ability to kind of craft a space that was
Sims was really
uniquely
cool.
yours. And I think that was one of the best
Mm.
benefits to putting this
I
into
really
an
enjoyed playing
MMO,
Sims back in the
is
day.
out of all the game that the
I guess they still
developers
make
made all
Sims,
this
right?
other stuff and other players may have done
I
other
don't know.
stuff, you have a space that is uniquely yours, and you have a place
Yes.
in which you belong. And never underestimate how valuable that is. I mean, my kids, a year ago, they were really into Animal Crossing on I think that it was like the original GameCube. Right? That was like one of the first Animal Crossings, right? And there's not even multiplayer, but they found out that there are two different save games that they could visit each other's neighborhoods, and they could see each other's houses. And so it became a thing, like they loved decorating their house more than anything else in that game. It was all about having your own space and collecting different things and bringing it in, and then getting to share it. And so it turned from like a personal experience to a shared social experience, which is really cool, because that's these
Yes.
are the building blocks on which you build an MMORPG. So yeah, I so that's my response. And also, just as you said, like, it doesn't have to be for everybody, but if it's for a lot of people that can benefit your game, then maybe you slow down World of Warcraft and really consider doing it the right way.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Like just being fun for a small segment of the population
Uh-oh.
is good enough. Like all of those
Whoa.
other
Hit
things
me a
are
little
like
hard now, aren't you?
ways we would convince developers
Oh.
to do it. But really,
Whoa.
as long as you're having fun, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
We shouldn't have to we shouldn't have to add all those other caveats, right? We shouldn't have to say, well, it will help your retention and it will help your blah blah blah. Mm.
I
MMOs are
think it's
supposed to
just
be fun.
fun.
Am I
Yeah.
missing
I mean,
something?
I'm guessing your first MMO with housing
Like,
is
do they like get
online.
crazy
Yeah,
buffed
it
or
was my
something?
first
Like, what's going
MMO.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are they hitting so hard?
I'm trying to think of what I play City Heroes, but I didn't have a super base or
Oh,
a
the
super
base
Like,
is
now
city.
I'm waking
phenomenal
up.
back then, so you
Yeah.
weren't missing much.
So I'm trying to think of what the first MMO that I played that had housing.
Didn't you play Anarchy Online?
Yeah, they had apartments,
They
but
had
I never had
apartments.
one. I
Oh.
had no idea they even existed back then.
Okay.
Uh, we
um
laugh, but like back in the day, there's so many parts of these games we just The wikis weren't
Yeah.
great. The information
Oh
online
yeah.
wasn't great. And if you weren't really in the know, there was so much you just didn't know about the game. Probably like, I
How the
think what
times
like
have changed
Lotro
with
might have been the
internet.
first game where I really had
Oh
a house.
wow.
So
Wow.
2007.
Yeah, I wonder. So I wonder how much of that, like, whether you had housing in the beginning, how much of that becomes part of like what you associate with MMOs, and MMOs that don't have them, for me, don't feel like true full MMORPGs. They feel like something a little bit less. And if you didn't grow up that way, or like your first MMOs, plural, didn't have it, and then suddenly you get housing, it just feels like a bonus instead of something that was missing all along. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a different perspective for sure. Because when like Lotro got it, I was like, this is really cool.
Yes.
I don't know if it had a day one, but they definitely had it in the first year, and it was like, yeah, I wish more MMOs would have this sort of thing because I was playing, Guild Wars, City Heroes, World of Warcraft, good
Yeah, you
games,
just
but
happened to take that
Guild
line. Like you didn't
Wars.
play
Hmm.
EverQuest 2 when it
I don't really know.
launched.
Does Guild
or
Wars have a
Star Wars
housing system?
Galaxies, which
Yeah.
I eyed for a very
I'm
long
assuming they have
time and
something,
just
I would
never
think.
Or Ashran
jumped
Skull
into that.
also
But I
had
don't know.
housing way back when.
Did the original
It
EverQuest?
not at launch, but for my brain is telling me they added it later, and now I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look it up. But they definitely didn't have it the first couple years.
They added it. I know because they have like
Okay.
rewards all the time for housing items.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't know if they're Astron's Call. Did Astron's Call have it?
It did. They also added it after launch,
Okay.
which is really interesting. It's one of the things I wanted to talk about
Sure.
at some point is that there's this perception because of World of Warcraft. There's this idea that you can't add housing after launch, and yet we know of so many games that have done it, right? Just the couple we named, plus Elder Scrolls Online did not have it at launch, and they added a spectacular housing system. It totally can, and there are ways to do it, especially if you're going the instance route that doesn't necessarily have to completely disrupt your entire game and its economy, and you
Yeah,
don't have to start from
that's
scratch.
true.
Instancing is like, I don't know,
Yeah.
such a blessing when you're adding things in later. But anyway, that's kind of random. I just wanted to fight that idea that
No,
just
let's actually dig into that a little bit because I think that can actually be a really cool thing for your game. Is it's such a big feature point, and that's something I've been expecting out of a World of Warcraft expansion.
I
Every
know.
time they announce a new one and they put up the features of that expansion, I'm like, just announce housing. Please announce housing. I
Wait,
don't care
does
what else
WoW
you
still
announce.
not have
Housing it.
housing? No way.
And what I hear from I've
What?
heard this less and less over the last couple of years, but I used to hear a lot of people going,
Gosh,
"Well, they
I
tried it
haven't.
once with garrisons. People
Yeah, I
weren't
remember.
Oh,
thrilled
stop
about
Yeah,
saying
I
it."
that,
remember the
people. This is as bad
garrisons.
as the, well, Guild Wars 2 has personal instances. Shut up! That's not
It's
what we're
not.
talking about.
So
Yeah,
there,
I
yeah,
remember the
there's a difference
garrisons,
of
but I
where's
didn't
the line
know that
where's the
Right.
line between
WoW didn't
real
have
clear
housing yet.
housing and some
That's
weird
kind of
facsimile
crazy.
that's not really
Right.
it's not really
Like an
you know
achievements with
Gosh, I haven't
graphics.
played WoW
yeah,
in
there's not as much
like 3
customization
years, I
and
think.
everybody's ends up looking the same. So it's
It's been a minute.
that's not really a personal housing
Right.
system. Yeah, but games even last year we talked about. I think we gave Villagers and Heroes our housing
Yes,
award
that's right.
because they came out with a great two-part housing update. That this game that was all about having like a villager life on top of your heroic life never had like internal houses. You just had
Right.
a
It's like a
housing plot.
shell that you would click on your house and it was like an inventory.
Right.
Like you couldn't go inside of it. You couldn't decorate it or anything like that. You had an outdoor plot and like this structure that was really just another bank. It was, better than nothing. If
But
WoW added that, I wouldn't turn it down, right? But
you think that
we
would have
want
been a
more.
day one feature for that game? Just saying. That's
They're so indie. And I
yeah.
think that's one of the reasons we wanted to give them that award because that's a teeny tiny little company and they still managed to pull it off, right? To make an interior housing. So if they can do it with their very limited resources, some of these AAA companies are making an intentional decision to keep, turning away a large potential player base.
I think that's what really frustrates me, especially about World of Warcraft, is we know from some developer quotes they've been talking about it since beta.
Hmm.
I mean, they had spots like if you
Oh
remember
yeah.
Stormwind back in the day, that one of those little castles that's in the moat. I don't know what you call it, a little tiny little thing, and there was like a little instance portal. You could see it didn't go anywhere, but it was kind of designed that if they ever added like instance housing, that's a possibility of where it might go, or that might be the first of like a apartment, or
I
they were just kind
still
of
can't
leaving
believe they
themselves
haven't done
some little dangling
housing
threads that
yet.
they could pick up, and they just never did.
It's
And the
kind of
fact that
wild.
they've been talking about for so long shows you that like housing isn't a really new idea, obviously,
Oh
for
no.
MMOs. So, but it wasn't also, in 2004, it wasn't necessarily standard across the industry. Some titles had it, some titles didn't. And so, how do you feel about like where the industry is at now with major titles? I think we've
Mm.
seen a lot, like Star Wars: The Old Republic added housing
Yeah,
post
they
launch.
have like, are they ships? Is that how it works? Are they like
No, 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 no. They have you have your own like
on the space station or something? Like, how does it work?
you buy a plot. It's like an instance shell of an apartment that's
Mm.
either on Coruscant or Tatooine or one of these other planets, and so the building is set and it's in place and it has a hook system. So it's a lot like say Lotro, where you can buy. Okay, I want the Coruscant one.
Okay.
And then it has like 20 rooms, but I only have 3 rooms unlocked at the beginning, and I have to pay X amount of credits to unlock future rooms and stuff like that. So
All right. Well, that sounds all right. I
yeah,
guess I
it's
guess
decent. They've done some decent things with it. It's not
again,
quite as
not with
flexible.
not with the world's biggest studio or the world's biggest budget, and they can still pull that off, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't in at launch either, as I recall, was it? I don't remember that
No, no,
at
no. They
launch.
added that one a couple years after.
There you go.
Let's
Yeah,
say.
it's definitely easier to add instance after the fact. I guess I'm trying to think of the major MMOs that don't have it, and it seems like it's kind of. I mean, Final Fantasy has it, Elder Scrolls has it, Black Desert has it,
Let's go
Albion
Black
has it.
Desert.
Although Albion's housing is more
Whoop
like
whoop.
farming land, and you get like a little cabin kind of thing, and you can build it up.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you can do that. It's pretty much housing. Um,
Eve Online doesn't, and they talked about having, they had the quarters for a
yeah.
while, and then I think they
Eve is
nixed
such
that
an
one.
oddball case because I mean
It
they
is
do
an
have
oddball
plenty
one.
of ownership in that game. I'm not really sure what they would do with housing. They have like hangars and space stations and stuff that
Yeah.
it's pretty close. You know what I mean? Like it's not exactly the same, but neither are being flying around as a ship. That's not exactly a one-to-one, relationship either with the rest of the I am a person or a critter or some bipedal thing.
I want to say DCUO does, but I'm
Yeah,
not
I thought they
entirely.
had layers. Don't they
Okay.
have a layer system?
New World does. Actually, New World has a
Of course. Oh, New
really
World. I almost forgot New World. There you
nice,
go.
underrated. I
Yeah,
really
it's really
like their
good.
housing system. It's a lot of different options. It's incorporated right into the town hub so that as you're going about,
There
you
you
go,
go.
oh, that's my house. I can go over there. So it's a really nice way that they use instances. And the placement tools, which we need to talk about in a minute, are just so good. And actually,
Yeah.
can we jump ahead and talk about
Yeah,
placement
let's do
tools for
it.
a minute? So, yeah, that's one of my bellwether standards for housing and MMOs. It's not just well, is it instance or open world? How much space do I get? Is it something where a hook system or freeform? But it's how easy is it to set up stuff in the house? Like
Hmm.
sometimes I think we really hold WildStar up really high in terms of how incredible their housing system was, with the island plots. They really were. I mean, the things people could do with that game was astounding. Some of those you right now are going around doing a City Heroes base crawl. I did the
Yeah.
same with WildStar, and it's amazing what people could do. Worst placement tools I think I've ever had to struggle with.
Oh, I guarantee they're not worse than City of Heroes.
Okay, maybe
Those are
not
even
worse,
worse.
but they were not they were
Yeah.
not
They're like
smooth and
dev
slick.
tools instead of like user tools.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very. I guess the word I would use is fiddly. They were very, very fiddly.
Okay.
And when I came from games like, I think the best placement tools I've seen, like Rift, was so easy to work with.
Mm.
Resizing items, the fact that it had a slider that you could easily make
Oh,
small
that's
items
cool.
big items small, stack them, arrange them, take one item and just flip it around, and now you've got a brand new thing that you can put on your wall or whatever. Super easy to use. And that's why I like New World is pretty easy. One that I really don't like is Elder Scrolls. I don't like their placement tools at all because
Yeah.
their placement tools are like nestled in menus upon menu. Like you have to pull up a menu to find the item you want. It pulls up the item on the screen. You have to press another button. Then you can start placing it. And it's like, no, that's, like that. The actual houses are cool in ESO. They really are. There's so many of them. There's apartments.
Yeah,
There's
that's pretty
huge
cool.
housing plots. It's a big part of their monetization. Obviously, they love to
Yeah.
sell that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, big
But
time.
it's yeah, the placement tools really
You can
leave
make
a
some really
lot
cool
to be
areas,
desired.
and
The
there are some really
Darkseekers,
cool
frankly.
areas.
But
Like I know
Mm.
what about you? What are I mean, you've
one of
been
my
fiddling around with
friends
housing a lot more than
Yeah.
I have.
I
had a
wonder how much of
place there
that,
in
like,
ESO where
if
their
you're
house was like
obsessed
in a
with it or you're
dungeon,
willing to
so it
put
was
up with
really cool.
crap. You know what I mean?
It's
Where
cool
like
Yeah,
looking.
you
I am
just get
worried.
used to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I started out in UO, and UO's placement is pretty easy, honestly, because everything is like based on a tile system, and you can kind of float things around and lock them down and stack them up and things like that. But honestly, it reminds me of like building, I don't know, like, and it's an isometric game, so that kind of thing is so much easier than, say, fast forwarding what 6 years or so, and you're in Star Wars Galaxies, where everything you're having to make macros to move things by one, like
Ooh,
one forward, or yaw, or pitch, or roll, and you can do amazing things with it. But just doing a single room will take like hours or days, and in a way that's really cool, because if you're really good at this, that's
All
your
right, what
new
is going on?
profession.
Is there like an
Never
event or
have to
something like
level a
that?
character, because you can get people to pay you to
It's
decorate
kind of
their
weird.
houses. I saw so many people make bank, hundreds of millions of credits, selling their services at
just
home
to be an
design.
interior decorator?
Absolutely, which is
Wow.
amazing to me. I'm sorry, that is so cool. I love it so much. And yet, if you were just a normal person and you didn't really want to learn how any of this worked, you were probably going to have a house that had like 5 backpacks on a wall, and that's where you put all
This is
your
a pretty
stuff.
chill spot though.
Okay.
Don't laugh, but
Even
that's
though
what
like
people do.
my
And
damage is not the
people did
greatest
this
for
in
some
UO too.
reason.
You could load into their plot, and they would have like a chest where they put all their things. And because they hadn't wanted to take the time or didn't have the money to actually build walls and floors and ceilings and doors and things like that. So it's safe and everything, but like, yeah, I sometimes that's one of the things I wanted to talk about was prefab versus for custom houses too, because they really tie together, right? Whether players have an easy time accessing housing as builders and not just droppers, right? How is it accessible, I guess, is as making it something pretty, or at least making something good enough. UO actually had when it first launched, it had system housing that was prefab, where you would buy like the house, like you knew exactly what it was going to look like and how many places, how many squares it was going to take up, and you were buying like the thatched roof house or the large plaster house or the giant keep, and that was they all looked the same. Like every house of that model looked exactly the same, and later on they added customization, and sometimes I think that was for the best. Sometimes I'm like, yay, because now I can make anything, right? I have a blank slate that I can just build up as much as I want. And also, I know that sometimes wandering around the world, people are very bad at this. And
Yeah.
you see how bad they are at this. And I don't just mean the empty plots with the crate, I mean, like, they'll just build like four giant square rooms on top of each other, all like one big slab. And, or they'll, worse, they'll just put all their stuff all over. Instead of getting a crate, it's like every tile is covered with things, like flashing neon things. And it can be kind of ugly. There's a trade-off with the customization and accessibility when
I
people
think
don't know what they're
yeah,
doing.
some of us really don't aren't great at building structures.
Sure.
I mean, playing Sims 4, and I watch some of the videos of
Oh my
people are
gosh.
so good at building houses, and then I try to build it, and it just looks like no, that would get repossessed on day
Oh yeah,
one. That's
same
the
here.
worst. Yeah, I
Oh
shouldn't
Yep.
use.
no.
So I can. I mean, it depends again on the placement tools and how well like do the parts snap together.
Mm.
I look for that. Like I want the option to unsnap them and just move them around, but I like snap. I like to have that because that's an easy way to make something look good, really
It is, but it's
fast.
so limiting too. Because
It
if you want
Yeah.
to
is.
stack items or flip them upside down or move them just slightly off kilter so they fit better, you can't unless they've got a system where you can turn that off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Have
Yeah.
something where you can toggle it on and off so that you can start with all the snap stuff and then you can start going around and making
Yeah.
those
Okay, I like
little
that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
accessible for both groups. That's
right.
ideal, right? If you're gonna have a system like that.
Like so Wildstar, going back to Wildstar's housing,
Yeah.
I really liked how the fact that they give you an island. I like when you get a plot of land to work with too.
Mhm.
Rift does this, and you were talking about that as well with shoot, I
With
don't
City
know,
of Heroes.
City Heroes,
Yeah.
Landmark, which I think we need to bring into this conversation.
Landmark. Yes.
Definitely, it had to start with the plot of land, but their ideas, open world housing like crazy all over the place. But Wildstar, they'd start off with like a default house, so you had the shell, and you can go in and kind of customize it, and build additional rooms if you wanted, or just have a wide open space. But you could also go into the store, if I recall, and just buy prefabricated houses that were made along a theme, and then plop them down as like a second or third house on your plot. So you can have one house that you were
Oh,
just
okay.
fully customizing. Because I remember I bought the haunted house one because it looked really cool, and it was and you could still go inside of it and make additional rooms and stuff. But I also didn't have to like build the whole thing from
The whole
scratch because
exterior.
I don't want to do the exterior stuff. I just want to go in and start place some walls,
Yeah, it's fair.
place some rooms, and start having fun with decoration. That's for me. That's where I like to start. But yeah, that's having both is really important because we're just not all
Right.
quite there.
And we
But
don't only need
also,
to be. Like some people really just want a place to stick their stuff, and that needs to be okay, but doesn't mean we have to make the world ugly. Just give
right.
them a house. They'll be happy. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, and going back to Landmark, that was one of the things that SOE at the time was talking about for that title, was that it was going to be watching the creations that players made, and the ones that were really good, they were going to like take and package up and say, now this is something we can port over to EverQuest next, or
Oh,
people could
yes.
sell maybe and buy, and like Bree creates an awesome house. I don't want to make that. I just want to buy her house and use it. You know.
That would be really cool. That's like the interior decorator thing, cranked up to 11, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
not just buying someone to decorate your house, you're buying the actual plans that would construct your house in a unique way. That would
Because
be
some
really
people have
cool.
that. They have the eye for it. They
Yeah.
really do. It's like, you know when somebody has the ear for music or the eye for art, and there's a skill to interior and
Yeah.
exterior decorating, and we can all have it to some degree, but we don't all have. Like, I still want something to look really good. I love really good music. I can't
Oh,
make it,
oh,
but I can identify it and I can acquire it. So I would
Right.
love to do that with houses as well.
Totally.
oh.
All right, so let's see what else we
Starting to
can
hit hard.
talk about from our long list of items here. So, you wanted to talk about ways that MMO housing systems grow over time.
Did
I
I
mean,
really? Did I put that on my list?
Lol.
yeah. You kind of talked about um, expansion, guild halls, shops, cities, what
Oh, I
players
see what
do
you
with
mean.
housing once
Yes.
we get it.
Yeah, because it's not just about the structure, right? And it's not just about the crap we put in it. Like, it does no good if we all have a house and we put our stuff in it and then we have no reason to go back. Like, that doesn't work for sticky. That's just like some weird,
Sticky.
like we were talking about before, a
Sticky.
visual achievement board. Why would I even do that? And I think the most successful housing is when there's something in the game connected to the housing that makes us want to go there and do something there. The housing I remember the most is like the housing where I stumbled into somebody's cool house because I was there to shop for something because they had a vendor in the house. And while I was there, I was like, holy crap, this is an amazing house. And I'm going to walk around the whole thing and just look at it before I buy this thing. And then suddenly you get addicted to that feeling of like I gotta go shopping some more because there might be more cool houses out there and I don't even know and I want to go look at them all. That is really sticky to me.
You
Or
kind of it gets absorbed into your gameplay loop.
yeah, it becomes the game instead of just being something you're doing in between your real combat loop or whatever it is. Suddenly that's like your whole reason for playing. It can be. It doesn't have to be. If I Ideally, it's just part of the overall, right? It's something you
All
can
right.
do
I don't.
for fun
Oh,
on the
wrong way.
side. But like, there's all kinds of stuff they
Not
can
really
make
sure
housing
how
do.
I'm doing here
You can have guild hall.
with my
I remember
trash
the
and
name now.
whatnot.
The guild hall. That's one of the things I wanted to
I
talk about.
know
Like, housing doesn't
I
have to be
technically should be able
personal.
to do
It
all
could be
three
for
of those
groups.
packs,
Like
Yes,
super group bases originally
and I'm
were. I
not
don't think
able
they
to do
really
that,
are anymore because you
which
can just
means
own
my
one
damage is
and own
definitely
kinship
hundreds of them.
housing and
still not where it
Yeah.
needs
BDO
to
and
be.
yeah.
Or maybe it's
That can be really
accuracy.
fun if you find a way to tie the actual existence of the group or the guild or whatever you call it to the building. Suddenly now the whole group has a reason to come back there, especially if you're giving them perks for actually doing things there. Not all games do that. I like that idea honestly, as long as small guilds aren't being penalized. I think that's a
Whoa.
really cool idea to because then you're reinforcing not just the stickiness of owning a thing, but also the stickiness of being part of a group. And now the group owns the things, and now you've got even more reinforcement to come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over and over again. Um,
Or
but
like Final Fantasy 14, their free company housing often comes with, or always comes with, apartments. So if you can't afford your own
yeah,
house, you can buy an apartment in that house. So now everybody's going to that house, but you also have your personal
Oh,
space
that's
as
so
It's
cool. I love
crazy
that
to
so
instance
think
much.
in
that
the
it's
house.
almost been
Yeah,
an
I really do
hour.
like apartments. I'll
Jeez,
sidestep over to that for a second because I know that EverQuest 2 was the first time I ever saw, like personally, apartments in an MMO, like a little instance kind of thing. And I really liked the concept.
EverQuest.
I
Never
like
played
the
it.
idea of living in the real city and not necessarily living somewhere out on the frontier,
Yeah, I
which
like
can be
that
really cool
too.
and there's a lot you can do with that too, but
Maybe
living
it
in the
should be a
city makes you
mixture of
feel like
both.
you're part of
You
the
know,
game instead of part of like this secondary space that doesn't really count. You know what I mean? Like I loved that. And so when Star Wars Galaxies Legends did that a couple years ago, gave them an award because they created Bespin the planet and then they put an apartment buildings on Bespin so you can go there and buy an apartment that literally it's like a high-rise apartment so you can like look out over Cloud City from your apartment window. It is so cool. I don't know, I love the idea of that so much because it makes you feel like you're actually part of the real city instead
Yeah.
of player cities. But although I like player cities too, I don't want to say that I don't. I love
and
them.
and again, for a lot of people that are
it
more
just comes
concerned
down
with
to
the
kind of your own
interior
preference.
houses and instead of the
Mhm.
exterior,
I don't know. I
apartments are
think,
ideal. Like
yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I don't really care. Just give me a nice, fun interior
I
space,
feel
and
like
that I'm already happy.
it'd be nice
That
to
way I'm not
have
having to travel super far
both, whether
away.
you
I
have
can,
like
Right.
ideally, I just want to both like
property or
one button
land
on
or a
my little
house
hot
like
bar
out and
and go over
that's
there. But
isolated, and then you have
if
land
it's part of the city
that's
where
in the
I'm always
city.
going back to anyways, then I feel like yeah, it's a stop on the tour. It's a reason,
Yeah.
you know. I think that's a reason why you can additionally get all these players back together in the cities, which is something devs are always
Mhm.
trying to figure out ways to do. You know,
Don't kill your main hub, right?
yeah, yeah. We're so you have this natural social bustling hub of industry and crafting and economy and then you have socialization and housing on top of that,
Yes.
and it just really naturally flows together. It's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just standing outside of those apartments by the elevators, you will see people. You will bump into people and socialize with them because they're going into the same building or into the next, next apartment over. Just like in real life, right? You're going to be friends with your neighbors in a way you might not in a player city where people are a little bit more spread out and there's urban planning and whatnot.
I kind of feel like apartments are also some of the earliest examples of player housing that were kind of starting to be persistent. And when games were struggling with the open world versus instance question,
Yeah, I want to talk
you
about this for sure.
yeah, so Anarchy Online did apartments, but also like Neocron. I know we're not gonna. Wow, that's the only time I'm going to mention.
Neocron, that's throwing it back.
I well when I did my game archaeologist on that, I noted, oh yeah, they had player housing like
Did
really
they
far back in the
really?
day, and it was apartments. And
Okay.
here's another title that I don't know if many people realize that they have player apartments, Champions Online.
What? Nah, do they really? I played Champions for a long time. It does not have housing.
It,
Seriously?
yeah, because somebody sent me a one shot with their
What?
player housing
Wait, I'm
apartment,
writing this down.
and I'm like, what the what the
I had no
huh?
idea.
Because
When did
Star
they
Trek
add
on
that?
yeah, I didn't really. Cryptic hasn't always been the biggest into the housing pass city heroes, but like Star Trek Online is a weird example. Like you have your starship,
Mm.
um, and you can sort of customize your captain's quarters, and you can sort of choose a layout for the bridge, but it's not really true housing in any way, shape, or form. But they also do have bases. I've never been to like a fleet base or something like that, but I've heard things. I've heard that they have that sort of thing. So, and I have no idea what Neverwinter does. So,
Yeah, I have no idea if Neverwinter
somebody could
has
be yelling
housing.
at me right now. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's always interesting to me. The houses, the games that suddenly you don't know that they have housing because they don't really market it that way, right? Like I mean, stuff like Star Wars Galaxies, they marketed it around their player cities once those went in. That became like a huge draw. But like other games, they just happened. I really didn't know Champions had it.
Yeah, now I'm gonna have
Hilarious.
to investigate a little. Yeah, I know. I was same thing. It's same thing. Also thought it was really interesting how um, both two titles that we looked at launching last year, both Wayfinder and Palea, came out and they had
Yeah.
housing in them, and in different ways. Palea is more of a you've got your instance plot of land, and you can do a lot. Where you can have multiple houses, you can have a tent, you can have all your crafting stations, placement tools, really good in Palea, by the way.
Yeah.
And it looks good. Like the housing looks good, and there's a lot to collect, and obviously they tie it very heavily into their whole gameplay loop. But Wayfinder, I really liked the idea, like right from the get go when they released their whole flow chart of their gameplay loop we've talked about in the past. They specifically said like housing is a big part of it. Like you go on
Yeah.
adventures, you bring back stuff to your house and your apartment. Like these apartments would be baked into the game, and then you do stuff, you decorate, you get your buffs or whatever you're doing, and then you go back out for more adventures. And so it was kind of a place to begin and end your journeys. And I
Which
was like,
makes
wow,
sense, right?
yeah.
That's where you do that in real life too. You wake up in your house and you do your things and you come back.
And yeah, unless you've been drinking heavily,
Well,
yeah,
so far I
Well, I
think I've only
mean,
gotten one ember.
some
So
of us never get to leave.
yeah, it's good. Pretty
I'm
sure it's
fine with
pretty
it, really.
bad,
she's her,
actually.
her housing instance has just been stuck.
I'll be interested to see what the
Look,
average
I have
trash
it
is here.
decorated very well because because of that.
Definitely
Okay, but
not
I
what
do
I'm
want
gonna
to talk
pull.
about
That's for sure.
instancing versus
Sure.
non-instancing because I know I'm talking up instance housing here because I think it's better than nothing. And in fact, I think instance housing can be really great. Like again, I don't think it would be possible to do something like Rift or Wildstar housing in the open world. Like that would make no sense whatsoever. It would be insane, right? I think however, I would prefer it be baked into the base game, into the open world, because that's something everybody can see. You're not just seeing your housing, you're seeing everybody's housing. As long as it doesn't look like poop, it reminds you that everything is social, and it usually creates, I think those things go together. It usually creates, or at least drags along, other systems to justify it, like crafting and um, you know, rune books or like traveling type things, because if you're going to have to go to people's houses to buy stuff, now you need to be able to travel there. And it forces the developers hands and forces in content that wouldn't necessarily have otherwise gone into the game. If you don't need to travel to the far-flung corners of the map to get to somebody's house, then they just won't even bother. I would prefer it to be open world, but I understand why you just can't always do that, and especially if it's getting added after the fact. I would rather have
It
instances
really
than
has to
nothing.
be there from day one. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It there and so let's be fair. Like I would prefer almost always instance housing or instance
Mm.
plots, but I try to be very fair in going, okay, what are the advantages? Like games like Arcade where they're really
Yeah,
built
arcade
around,
system is pretty
uh,
cool.
Yeah. Good. Good.
the
Mhm.
land rush that we talked about, but
Yeah,
having your spot,
yeah, your own
Yes.
having
specific
that be
spot. It's
part
pretty
of
cool.
the
I remember I
strategy
got a
of the
spot like
game
right
and
beside
part of
the
the
ocean.
economy and how
It's pretty
close
sick.
you are to economy hubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So open world housing, you're everything's out, right there for you. You can always be stumbling over it as you're going out and about. One title that we don't really talk about too much, I think I would say this has open world housing, but it has it in a bit of a different way. Is Fallout 76.
Ooh.
So you see
Is that like
everybody's
Fallout
tropes, or
76.
does
That's
the
not even an
person you're
MMO
on?
though.
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you can place a house within like they have boundaries and you can't really see the boundaries until you start trying to place your house. Like they don't want you obviously placing your house right on top of a quest objective or
Right.
somewhere, but for the most part, like you have a huge amount of freedom. You can place your house, and as you go along, as long as those people are logged in, you're seeing wherever their houses are. In fact, they note them on the map.
Watch there be
So
like some specific
you know,
mechanic that I'm
I
supposed
can
to be
look on the
doing.
map and go, oh, I'm close to this person's house, and I can hover over their icon and say, oh, they have vendors and they have this and they have that.
10 more
And so
minutes.
now I have a reason to go to their house. But often the reason I went to people's houses in Fallout 76 is because it was weird or attractive. Like it's something that drew the eye, and I went like, what is that? The coolest ones were the ones I honestly thought were developed by Bethesda. I thought that they were actually part of the game,
Ah,
and then I went
okay.
over. I'm like, what is this cool landmark? I'm like, oh, it's a player house. Like, oh wow, like they put in a lot of work. The creativity, or somebody's just being really goofy and doing something funny like that. I think that's a really good advantage to open world housing. Like it can be part of your journey to going along and see somebody's house and want to take a detour to go investigate that, or have it be a much needed pit stop when you need a merchant but you can't go all the way back to the city, and oh, but that person has a house and they have vendors or they have some things that I can use. So that's those are nice things, and having
Mhm.
your little slice of the world. I know this is something that Ashes of Creation is currently trying to figure out solutions with, and I think that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're going to have instance housing, but they're also going to have limited open world housing. So it's, like if you can't get that open world housing, then you at least have a way to go about it. And that's something that also Final Fantasy 14 does, where
Uh-huh.
you have your
I
housing
knew you were going to
neighborhoods,
say that because there's
and
never enough housing to go around in that game.
never.
And
Nope.
yet it's not open world, right? It's not technically.
The
It's
the
instanced.
neighborhoods are instanced, and
Yeah.
There
because
you
they
go.
have
Okay.
different
But the neighborhoods
layers
is
of
that's a
them,
really
and
cool
but
thought though. Just to
within
like
those
roll up a
neighborhoods, they
neighborhood,
are
like
open,
there's
so
different
you can run
houses and they're all
around and
kind of
see different
decorated. It's
people's
pretty cool. It's like a
houses. So,
subdivision.
kind of like,
You're just chilling in a
Loco
subdivision.
would have, they
Right.
have their housing neighborhoods. So
I think
yeah,
that's
so
a good solution. I can't complain about that. Like that's better than nothing. I really don't want people to not be able to get a house when they want it. That's something that
Yeah.
I've always felt. Again,
Yeah,
maybe
it's
it's
really
because I grew
important.
up on UO, but there was a time in UO a couple of months into the game there was no place left to put a house.
Yeah, I feel like that's not
Every
right.
possible scrap of land where you could stick a house was taken. And it was like that's a problem because at the time you could put down as many houses as you wanted, and it didn't
Yeah.
take that much money to actually completely fill up huge swaths of land. And even after that, when they changed it around so you can only have one house per account, it's still really tight on the big servers. Good luck finding a. You're not going to find a big slot. Like you might find a small one. That can be really like demoralizing for somebody who's been playing for a while because a house is really important to have, not just for stickiness, but for gameplay. So if you can't get it, you just might just
She
wander
says
out of the game.
stickiness a lot.
I've definitely seen so many people get
hmm.
frustrated over 14, over Final Fantasy 14. But before we move on, I wanted to mention
Oh
Trove again
gosh.
because I really think Trove is so much like
Oh.
Fallout,
Oh.
and I really like it because, like you said, they're
Oh.
trying to straddle that line between open
Okay, what's
and
going on?
closed, where
It's
they've got
so weird.
these little lots
Like
that you
sometimes they hit
can
me
create
hard
your
and
house
sometimes
on,
they hit me like
plop
a
down
wet
in
noodle.
any possible like slot in
I
the
don't
world
get
when
it.
you're actually playing, and then they go away. But they've also got these gigantic guild-based type things. What are they called? Club worlds,
Clubs. Yep.
and they're immense. And you can keep making. Mine isn't even that big. Mine is only a couple of ticks big, and it's still gigantic. And you can make it even more giganticer if you really want to, and build anything permanently forever. And people can tour
Come on, give me
them.
the flame. Wouldn't that be
It's really cool. I've
crazy?
seen like whole worlds that are nothing but music boxes where you can
I can't
get
believe I've
on
only
a
got
little
one
rail
ember this
car.
whole hour.
Serious.
Yeah. Oh no,
You
Like
no,
that's
I
drive
watched the
crazy.
videos.
It's
Yeah.
so cool. And you drive on the rail, and like as you
It
go,
plays songs.
it plays songs based on like where the wheels tick past because of the way they've designed it. It's spectacular. Like it's really cool. I love systems like this that just go literally off the rails, where they're just stuff, anything you can conceive you can do. And yet they've also got this little tiny semi-instance housing thing tacked onto it, which means you don't have to pick, you can have both. Like if you are not into building gigantic, theme park world over here in your club world, you just have your little tiny square and you just, craft in that and sell your stuff and then go on with your life. Or vice versa, if you don't care at all about that world, you just play in your club world. I love that. I wish more games had options like that where you're not just pigeonholed into one type of housing.
Yeah, and Trove in both Trove and Fallout 76 also allow you to pack up your house and move it really
Yeah,
fast, which is great. I mean, that's a wonderful option for an open world housing. Like, what happens when two people log in and their houses are at the same spot?
right.
Like Fallout 76 says, "Oh, well, we're going to move, you can't set up your house, you have to move over to another server or just wait." And whereas
Oh.
Trove, I don't know
Yeah,
how
you
Trove
take it with
handles
you.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it disappears when you leave, but like whenever you come back in, you could still put it down. In fact, you can have more than one. So you could put down multiple little houses, but there's like certain places in the wilderness you can put them down. But yeah, you can't put them on top of somebody else's. If that plot is taken, you got to find another one.
What I would love to see a little bit more of, I think Star Wars Galaxies may be the only game I can think of off the top of my head that really had like a camp, like a mobile housing situation.
Ooh.
Like something where, you wanted to stop in the middle of the wilderness and set up a temporary structure or a temporary camp and have some services and some decoration, but you hang out there for a while, but as you move on, that kind of just fades away and it's no more. So it's still open world, it's still something you could share with your friends, but it's also not going to be like creating these giant ghost towns that
Forever and ever.
kind of, yeah.
What
And
about New
Uh,
World? Do you remember the tent cities that sprung up in the
they're
beginning of New World?
still
Still a
they're
lot of
still
10
bad.
cities.
I have no
Oh
idea
yeah.
why they do the camp things, but I
Very
would love to
funny.
see that as just,
Oh, wrong
I
way.
think there is so many possibilities for customizable, fun little tents you could set up and you could decorate and you could have some fun little services, and then that could be something you're hanging out with friends and then say, "Hey, let's stop for a little bit. Let's hang out, let's do some role play, or let's just sell our stuff, or get some buffs. And I've been talking about this forever. I think I remember pitching it to Mark Jacobs back in the Warhammer Online days, going, "This would be really cool." He's like, "Yeah, it would be." Well, we're not doing it. I'm like, "Oh well, shucks." But I would love to. I would love to see something like that, a little bit more temporary housing. That what
Yeah,
about
I like that, Justin.
like a like the wagons that people would take with the little houses in them, like the
Oh,
nomadic wagons.
like the Conestoga Trail wagons. What are those called? Duncan, what are those called?
Come
The
on, give me
wagon
another ember.
shoot, like the Pioneer wagons. What are those
3 more
called?
minutes. Give me an
Covered
ember.
Covered
Come
wagons.
on.
That's all
wagons.
they're called.
I was
There's
Come
I
a
was
on.
name
talking
for
more
them.
about like Europe, like the
Anyway,
Come
yeah.
Justin doesn't
on. Give
roll his
me the
eyes at us.
ember.
If they had a name, he'd know it. He knows everything.
I'm sure there are. So what? Another thing I want to talk about as our time starts to tick down. We could easily talk about this for
For
hours.
hours.
Sharing housing, like encouraging players
Mm.
to go over to other people's houses.
Oh, oh, oh,
How
oh,
do we
oh.
market houses? Like, how do
Calm down.
if I
Calm
come up
down.
with a
Let me heal
really
me
good
up.
house
Let
and
me
I
heal
want
up.
people to come check it out? Where's some game systems
Oh
that
wow.
encourage like surfing people's houses, taking those tours, and maybe even awarding them? Rift has a way to do that. It has a little like you can visit people's plots, and then you can give them like a
Come
plus
on.
one or something like that. You throw a little commendation on their plot, and
Well, that's
as those
cute.
as those accumulate over time, then when people pull up housing lists of all these the instances, they'll go, oh, this one has like 461 of these. That must be kind of cool. I should go check it out. Obviously, that really starts to benefit someone that
I'm
have
probably
been
the
around for
last
a long
mob right here,
time
actually.
and
True.
kind of weighs it
Or I don't know.
more in the
Maybe I
favor
might
of
be
the
able to get
older
one more
houses.
in.
But
Maybe.
I still thought that was kind of a nice system.
Yeah, I like that. Oh gosh, there's so many different ways of doing it. I don't even know where to start. Like UO did not really have a great way. You had to kind of advertise it yourself. You'd mark runes and give them away to get people to come to your place. There's uh rune libraries like where people would set up a house that had nothing but rune books full of runes to all of the cool places in the world, including to player houses, including to player like auction halls and all the kinds of stuff that players put together. Those I got really obsessed with. I Every time I play that game, I make myself another rune library because I want a spot. I want to have a link to every place cool.
Jeez.
I'm
Sure.
obsessed with this, Justin. Star Wars Galaxies was okay because you didn't have to mark runes and leave them on the ground, which you had to do in UO.
Okay, one
And
more.
people could
One
find your
more.
shop like just
You
by
get one
looking
more
through
in.
the regular system. UO eventually got that too. Like through the bazaar, they could actually look up where your shop was and just go straight to it. That's really helpful. But you could also send people waypoints and just like like an easy like in-game mail that has a waypoint to where your thing is. That's really helpful because you could literally just send them to everybody to advertise your party or your, cantina night or whatever you were doing at your house. It didn't have to be vendor. That's one of the things I really wish that City of Heroes had. I mentioned this last week, but
Come
you're
on.
having to go out of the game to get lists of where to go, or use a mod that has a list
I can
of
get
where to
it. I
go,
can get
and
it.
that I think is keeping the whole system much smaller than it should be. This
Come on, can
should
I
be
get up
a
before the
gigantic. Their super
50% up?
root
Come on,
based
come on.
system on Homecoming is
Come on, come on, come on, come
spectacular.
on.
One of the best housing systems I've ever seen now that it's been blown way out of proportion,
Ah,
compared to
push,
what it
push,
originally
push,
was.
push,
And
push.
yet it's really hard to find this
Nice.
stuff. You have to have the exact macro, the
Nice.
exact passcode to find this one spot that you're trying to get to. And there's no way to like jump between them without this outside tool compared to something like Trove, where you could actually set up. You could not only have a list of like your favorites that you've like bookmarked as you've gone there, like using the Hearthstone, but also like each one of those could have their own favorites. So you would go to a place to check it out, and then they would have a gigantic list of other
Well,
places they were recommending. So you could kind of
I didn't die. Let's see what we got. So, yeah, look at that crazy trash. 2600. All right, let me go to Garmoth here. And we'll put this in.
Today, let's dive in.
Learning to reach your audience. That's premium.
Let's say 2636. Okay. 24. 14. I didn't get like anything on the weapon stones, armor stones. 16. I got this fragment thing. So I got one of those. I got an ember. I got one of these here. So nice. So 137. So 287. I was at like 287. 287. Yeah. Is that right though? Yeah, pretty sure it's right. Pretty sure it's right. And 324 million. What's most people getting here? Let's see. Global grind. Man, really? 7,000 trash? Jeez, dude. What the heck? 7,000 trash? And I only got 2,600? What in the world am I doing? 420 DP. Wow. Huh. Interesting. Oh, well. Gosh, 2,600 trash. Only reason why I'm here is to try to get the embers. Oh, snap. We just hit 100 subscribers, boys. Let's go. 100 subscribers. No way. No way. Let's go. The big 100. That is hype. That is so hype. That is so hype. That is crazy. All right. That's crazy. So this creates the artifacts. I need 100 of these. Huh. That's cool, I guess. All right, let me go back to I'm so curious. I need to really look. 26,000 trash. I feel like that's so bad. So bad. What the heck? Yeah, I don't know. But at least I got me another ember. My very first ember. Actually grinding for it. I should get my AP cups now. I know I have enough to get them. That would give me what, 6 more AP, and I'd do the earring. That'd be my 314. See, I don't know. I don't know if AP is the issue or if it's like accuracy or what, but definitely feel like I'm not doing much damage to them. So, I don't know. But I'm gonna be hitting the bed here soon, so thanks for watching everyone. Hope y'all have a good rest of your night and a good day tomorrow, and I'll catch you later. Peace, peace.